The Corgis parade around Buckingham Palace to honor Queen Elizabeth as Gareth Russell reveals plans for the first anniversary of her death.
I think we will see the Prince and Princess of Wales do something. I would be very surprised if there's not a church service involved in one way or the other.
Plus, the royal kids get ready for back to school as Kate and William get ready for a rugby face-off. And Prince Harry shines a light on the Invictus Games, and Meghan may relaunch the TIG. But is it enough to win back the public opinion? PR expert David Johnson breaks it all down.
It's a slight win. The problem for Harry is his brand has been damaged so severely with all this controversy. It's never going to climb back to where it was before.
We've got that plus so much more on today's Royally Us. Hey guys, Christina Garibaldi with Christine Ross, and welcome to Royally Us. How are you, Christine?
I'm doing really well. I'm enjoying the summer's coming to the end. The air smells like sharpened pencils, and we're ready to get back into some royal stories.
Yeah, we're ready to get back into it. We wish everybody a great school year. I can't believe, I'm sure a lot of kids have already been back for a while, but over here, we're just getting back in the swing of things. So it's crazy.
I know, the same thing here. And it feels like September so much starts up again. I think school, everyone wants their fresh sort of end of year agendas, and even the royals starting up again with their work through the end of the year. It just feels like such a fresh time of year.
Really does. It really does. All right, well, let's get right into it. We got a lot of news to get to this week, and it's kicking off our royal roundup. I love this so much because, as we know, Queen Elizabeth loved her corgis and the corgis loved her. And a group of about 20 royal fans and their pet corgis took part in a parade outside of Buckingham Palace in London to mark the upcoming first anniversary of the late monarch's death. The animals were decked out for the occasion in crowns, tiaras, and other royal outfits. Agatha Crayer-Gilbert, who organized the memorial event, told the Associated Press that she hopes the parade takes place every year in the future, saying, "I can't see a better way to remember her than through her corgis, through the breed that she loved and cherished through her life." I absolutely love this. Like we said, this is such a fitting way and such a beautiful way to remember the Queen.
This is such a lovely, sweet story. We just spoke to Caroline Parry a few weeks ago, who wrote The Corgi and the Queen, which is an amazing children's book. And Queen Elizabeth II has just become synonymous with corgis. And I think that's a lovely symbolism really to attach to her memory. And it is nice, as a year ago, it was so somber. There was so much sadness. Now that it's a year later, it's now the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death. We can almost celebrate a bit more. I know that sounds a bit strange, but I think this was such a celebratory event and a really, really wonderful way to mark this anniversary.
Really was. I know September 8th is right around the corner. And as of now, when we film this, we don't really know exactly how the royals will mark the occasion publicly, but we recently caught up with our friend and author Gareth Russell about his thoughts on how Her Majesty will be remembered. Take a look. I cannot believe it's been almost 1 year since Queen Elizabeth has passed. I'm sure they're planning some events and things like that. I know that there was a report that William and Kate will lead the public mourning. Do we know anything about that and what that will entail?
The 1 year is probably when they will do something. And yes, it will be the Prince and Princess of Wales, we believe. There's a precedent more within the royal family for it to be quiet, not on anniversaries like the 1st or the 10th. Mm-hmm. But if we look back to the way Elizabeth II commemorated the passing of her father, George VI, which happened in February, there was always a sort of royal retreat to Sandringham in their estate in Norfolk, which is where George VI died. And the day was kept very quiet. It was not something, Princess Anne made a great point once where she said, well, we don't celebrate the accession itself because that was the day her father died. It was a day of great sorrow. And obviously for the first sort of 50 years of the Queen's reign, her mother was still alive, and that was the day her mother had become a widow. So the royals tend to keep the anniversaries of the previous monarch's death quite quietly. I think we'll see that continue with the way Charles III commemorates Elizabeth II's passing. But for the first anniversary, I think we will see the Prince and Princess of Wales do something. I would be very surprised if there's not a church service involved in one way or the other.
Yeah, it's like you still remember like exactly where you were, what you were doing when the news came about. And it was, even though she was, older in age, she was in her, 90s, it still came as a bit of a surprise.
It was, I think, a huge shock, especially since just the day before we had her meeting the then new Prime Minister Liz Truss. Mm-hmm. And she sort of of still looked like, she can carry out royal duties. Everything must be fine. And then obviously it wasn't fine. And the next day, was such a historic day. And I'm sure there will be lots of, posts of remembrance and lots of things to mark the day. Because, while it seems sort of like news to us, it's actually history, when you look at it in the big picture.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, over the weekend, the King attended the Braemar Royal Highland Gathering in Braemar, Scotland. The festive annual event of traditional games doubles as a proud display of Scottish heritage and is just a short drive from Balmoral Castle, where the King is continuing Queen Elizabeth's tradition of retreating for a private summer break. The outing marked a final milestone of the first year of Charles's reign, as we were just talking about, because it's been almost 1 year since he became king. So yes, this was just a little break from the summer's festivities, and to do a little work and a little appearance.
Yeah, it was really great. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was with him. It was really nice to see them together. I love this event because they're always laughing. All the men are in kilts. It's sort of a funny event to see the pictures of because it's so relaxed. It's very laid back, and at the same time, it's like the King and Queen of England.
Yes, no, definitely. Well, this was a big story. Mohammed Al Fayed, who, of course, his son Dodi Mohammed Fayed was killed in a car crash in 1997 alongside Princess Diana. Well, he recently passed away at the age of 94. As we know, he was the former owner of the upscale London department store Harrods, and he was a self-made man who owned a shipping company. So he was very wealthy. And, for years, he talked about the investigation into Princess Diana's death and Dodi's death. And they said that he died peacefully of old age with his family surrounding him. And he enjoyed a long and fulfilled retirement surrounded by his loved ones. But yes, died at 94, did live a long life. But we know from, documentaries that you watch and things like that, he was so, plagued by his son's death, as you would be. But this is something that consumed his life for so many years as he tried to get so many different answers.
Yeah, I think that's such a good way to put it. He really was plagued by this. It was just, he weighed very heavily on him. He tried to find some sort of answer. I suppose that all the police investigations didn't really sit well with him and didn't really feel like it was the truth, although, we know it was probably the truth. But yeah, amazing how this story has followed him. He had so many business accomplishments. He was such an accomplished man. And yet the story that's really attached to him the most is his son and his relationship with Princess Diana. It's just strange to look back on his life and think about all the things that, that he lived through and that he was a part of.
Right. No, definitely. And an interesting timing of his death as well, because it just came around the 26th anniversary of Princess Diana and Dodi's death. And her brother, Charles Spencer, remembered his sister. Of course, she was just 36 when she passed away. And he shared a throwback photo of himself and Diana as children. And the sweet image, posted without a caption, showed Spencer standing next to his much taller sister, sporting a pink and white striped dress, as she put an arm around his shoulder. And, another person who has been, like I said before, kind of plagued by the death and wanted so many different answers. And it's just, it's tragedy all around, but nice that, so many years later, they definitely keep her memory alive.
I know, it really is incredible to think about. I recently visited Althorp House where Princess Diana is laid to rest, where there's a big memorial. And even in the middle of the summer, there's flowers laid at the memorial bench. There's people there, almost in a state of mourning. And so even all these years later, Charles Spencer and Princess Diana's children and so many people around the world are still affected by this and still mourn that great loss.
Yeah, no, totally. All right. Well, we talk about it each and every week, but Sarah Ferguson continues to give us such great content. And this was so interesting because she remembered the last words that Queen Elizabeth said to her on her podcast. She talked about this. She said, "It's the last thing that the Queen said to me. Just be yourself, Sarah." And she saw it. She just got so annoyed when I wasn't being myself. And that's probably when I got into all the pickles. But now I am myself. And I'm just so lucky to be able to be myself. And such a simple saying, but such strong, powerful words that so many people should just remember. Just be yourself. And that's the best way to be. But I just love that was the last words to her former daughter-in-law.
I think this really speaks to how practical Queen Elizabeth II was. Just, she was very practical, just no fuss, just be yourself, carry on with the work. Mm-hmm. And yes, we absolutely love this podcast. Sarah Ferguson's podcast has just been a wealth of little tidbits. It's really, really fun listen. It's good girlfriend chat time. And please keep the little royal facts coming because we are living for them.
We really are living for these little nuggets. I love it. Well, Prince Harry has been in the news a lot this past week with the Invictus Games and his new documentary, The Heart of Invictus, which was released on Netflix. So the docuseries follows competitors from 6 countries training for the 5th cycle of the Invictus Games, which was held in the Netherlands 2 years after the pandemic. So after a warm introduction and a kiss from Meghan, he went into a speech and he said, when I talk to my son Archie about what he wants to be when he grows up, some days it's an astronaut, other days it's a pilot, a helicopter pilot, obviously, or Quasi from Octonauts. But what I remind him is that no matter what you want to be when you grow up, it's your character that matters most. And nothing would make his mom and me prouder than to see him have the character of what we see before us today. I'm sorry I didn't tune into the docuseries yet, but, I've heard good things about it. And it seems like, he's opening up a little bit about his family life. And he also opened up about how he experienced an unraveling from his tour of duty in Afghanistan and how that triggered the trauma of losing his mom, Princess Diana. He said, I can only speak for myself. For my personal experience, my tour of Afghanistan in 2012, flying Apaches, somewhere after that, there was an unraveling, and the trigger to me was actually returning from Afghanistan. But the stuff that was coming up from 1997, from the age of 12, losing my mom at such a young age, the trauma that I had, I was never really aware of, and it was never discussed. I didn't really talk about it. I suppressed it like most youngsters would have done, but then it all came fizzing out. I was bouncing off the walls. I was like, what is going on here? I am now feeling everything as opposed to being numb. So yeah, he did, he's talked about this in the past before about his mental health after his mom died and how he didn't really cope with it. But, he did so yet again and talking a little bit about his family.
Yeah, I really think that, this docuseries, the Invictus Game, this is one of the most important causes to him. And we've seen this time after time. The Invictus Games is really one of the things that is most important to him, and supporting servicemen and women, supporting veterans, especially supporting wounded veterans. Those are the projects that we see the most heart and soul come out of Harry. You can tell he's so passionate about providing this support. And I think sharing his own experience, sharing that all these feelings sort of came out after he returned home from Afghanistan, really highlight, that might open up doors for someone else to realize, like, oh, that's why I felt that way after my tour of duty. All of this is really, centralized on supporting servicemen and women and their families. And you can just see that. I mean, Harry he shines in a way. He just speaks from his heart. Everything else falls away. All the family drama, everything else falls away. And you can really see how important this cause is to him.
And this is the work that we like to see Harry do. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we speak to David a little bit later on. And, if this is the right move, even though it may not have connected with audiences on Netflix, it probably wasn't in the top 10 for a very long time. This is the work that I think people want to see from Harry. It's just whether or not it's going to connect with people. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, but let's spill the royalty. And we talked about Suits last week and how that was a big Netflix hit now that it's streaming again and people are finding this. But the creator actually claimed that there was a certain turn of phrase that the royal family did not want Meghan to say when she was starring in the show. So in a new interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Aaron Korsh claimed he was advised against incorporating the word poppycock into Meghan's lines. He said the word poppycock is an inside joke with his in-laws, and he planned to have Meghan say it in a scene with her co-star, Patrick J. Adams, who played Mike Ross. And I guess she was banned from saying poppycock.
This is such a strange story, because I think if you sort of match up the timelines, she was only filming Suits for one season while she was with Harry. And was the palace really, stepping in at that point? I'd be interested to hear, like all the sides to these stories. But yeah, I guess there must be strange rules once you sort of are semi part of the royal family.
I guess so. Poppycock, not one of those.
Not allowed.
Not allowed. Who knew? Well, this was interesting. So the fashion designer behind Meghan's long sleeves Givenchy wedding gown revealed some new details about the look. Wade Keller, who is the first female artistic director of Givenchy, when she brought Meghan's vision to life for her wedding, said she secretly stitched blue fabric from the dress that she wore on her first date with Harry. And she said of the something blue tradition. She said, we basically sewed it into the hem of the wedding dress. So she was the only one that knew it was there. It was a little blue gingham check. It was the perfect personal memento that was secretly hidden in the dress. I love that. And so this was the fabric of the dress that she wore for her first date with Harry. And luckily it was blue.
Yeah, that's such a sweet story. You know, I think a lot of us are like, okay, have we seen her in a gingham dress on Instagram?
Right.
So we figure out which one it was. But yeah, I love this little tidbit. I mean, that dress is a part of history. It's really amazing to think about how, you know, historical it will be one day. And somewhere in that hem is just a little bit of blue fabrics, you know, reminding them of something blue, but also the, you know, the romance of their first date. I think this is so sweet.
I love it. And they have been having some date nights recently. They were at the Beyonce concert. So they're definitely getting out and about. Harry was at a football game or soccer game that we like to call it here, seeing Lionel Messi. So it seems like they are getting out and about a little bit more and, you know, stepping back out into the spotlight a bit.
Definitely. I mean, we saw them sort of not hiding, but laying low for a while in the beginning of the year. I think now they're feeling a bit more confident, ready to step out and have some fun. And hopefully that means that we have some exciting projects coming up in the autumn for them to share with us.
Definitely. Well, speaking of these projects, let's break down the royal rules. And like we said, with Harry's new Invictus documentary and Meghan possibly relaunching the TIG, you know, I know TMZ reported this week that maybe next month there could be a relaunch. So we wanted to check in with David Johnson, who is a PR expert, to see if these are the right moves for the couple. Take a look. Harry and Meghan have definitely been in the news a little bit more lately. He just released this Invictus documentary on Netflix. What do you make of this move? I know that this has been in the works for a while, but is this something that Harry should continue to focus on, kind of get back to his roots?
He really should. But we also know, too, they've really contracted with Adam Lilling, who really helped relaunch Nicole Kidman and Matthew McConaughey with their branding. And that's what they're trying to do. And I think, though, also, Harry realizes he's got to soften his image. Between the book and other actions, he's come across as the petulant child to many. And he's rivaling Prince Andrew right now in unpopularity. And Andrew actually seems like he's somewhat recovering, believe it or not, being with Prince William and Kate Middleton, also dining with King Charles. So Harry has to do something to soften his image.
I totally agree with you. But it didn't seem like this docuseries really connected with audiences. It really wasn't in the Netflix top 10 for very long. But it does show Harry, like we were kind of saying, at what he does best, helping other people. Is that still a win, though, even though this wasn't a huge commercial success, but it did show him in a different light?
It's a slight win. The problem for Harry is his brand has been damaged so severely with all this controversy. It's never going to climb back to where it was before. I mean, he would have to really do a 360. He'd have to apologize, admit that he was wrong, even say that he lied to regain favor. And that is something we're not going to see. And if you look at polling in the UK, in the United States, his number, along with his wives, have just plummeted completely. And you don't come back fully from that. He does need to go back to his roots. He needs to focus on the Invictus Games and other charity work to recover even somewhat.
Do you think Netflix considers this a loss, though? If it's, like I said, not that big commercial success, a lot of audiences aren't really connecting with it. I mean, they've put a lot of money behind them. So do they consider this one a loss then?
They do. And the other thing that Netflix and other brands are going to be looking at is how toxic is Harry. And part of the reason why this was a loss was he's toxic to a lot of the public. Even the rebranding, the going to the games with the Beckhams and others, it's not helping his brand because he's seen by many people as being out of touch, very elitist as well. And remember, Harry's brand prior to all of this controversy was he was the down-to-earth wild child of the royal family, and they loved him for that and for his charity work. He had that common touch, very much like his mother did. And now it seems he's gone full Hollywood, and that's affecting his brand as well. Even when he talks about his charity work, people see it more as trying to come back, another way to make money. They don't see the sincerity that we used to see with Harry.
Is that the only, like, if you were, if they were your clients, is that the only way that they can really kind of crawl themselves out of this hole, is to really just make amends with the royal family?
That's the beginning of their comeback. They need to make those amends. The other thing is they need to go back really to their roots. They need to show some compassion. They need to be out with ordinary people, doing the charity work, doing what Diana did. They don't need to be doing the Hollywood glitter and glamour, which they're doing. And I would take a step back and really go quiet. I said that the last time we spoke, and I would again advise them to do that. And with Meghan Markle, she's fueling all of the speculation. She may bring back Tig. She may go back on Instagram. There's even talks now with Suits being the top-rated show on Netflix that she might go back to acting. She needs to dial all of this back. And the other thing that's hurting her too is all these headlines coming out too, that there's no peace possible because she'd have to curtsy to Kate Middleton at some point. That hurts your brand.
And like you said, you mentioned the TIG, and there were some reports this week that it may launch as early as next month and could rival Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. Would you tell Meghan to hold off on this a little bit longer? This is probably not the right move, or is this like kind of like her only move as well?
It's a move down the road. I would tell her to hold off. The first thing I would tell them to do, if I was advising them, even before they meet with the royal family at the Invictus Games, they need to show that common touch. They need to show caring and compassion. They also need to show affection toward each other and be seen publicly holding hands, their little affection that we used to see between the two of them, to help dispel these rumors that we're seeing everywhere, that the marriage is on the rocks, that they're talking to divorce attorneys. That will help dispel it. The other thing is they need to be real. They need to be original. It does not need to look staged.
No, you're so right. And I know Harry is going to be in the UK for the Well Child Awards this week. And then it will be going to the Invictus Games. Meghan opted not to go to the Well Child Awards. Is that a bad move on her part? I know she does have 2 small children at home, so she can't leave for that long. But was that not a good move on her part?
No, it was not a good move on her part. And it just helps fuel her unpopularity, especially in the United Kingdom. Yes, she does have the 2 children, but everybody was hoping that she would go. They were also hoping, too, that both she and Harry would try to make some kind of amends with the royal family. And the fact that they're not doing that they're not trying to reach out, especially with the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death.
Right.
That just really fuels the dislike and the harm that's been done to their brand.
So is coming up to the Invictus Games, is this a big moment for them? You kind of mentioned it before, but is this a big coming out moment? He's going to have that time to connect with a lot of people, a lot of the athletes, and, kind of bring him more back down to a human level.
It is. If he shows that side of him.
Right.
That's the big thing. I mean, he's got it. We all know it because that's why everybody loved Prince Harry. But if he doesn't show it, or if it seems staged and unnatural, it's going to really fall back. The other thing that better not happen for him is some damaging headline. Something comes out that he trashed Kate Middleton or Prince William during the game. If that comes out, that's going to create damage. The other thing is, too, and I think he did very well with this, he kind of downplayed all this talk that there's this feud with him and the Beckhams. He did praise the Beckhams just recently.
Yeah.
He doesn't need any headline like that he's dueling with somebody in a feud, that he's resentful, and he needs to stay on message. And the message has got to be the Harry of old.
Yes, the Harry of old. That should be the headline, and hopefully it happens. So is that what you would kind of advise them going forward?
That's what I would advise them. And I would also advise when they're together, because she's going to be joining him, that they show their love that we've all seen in the past. They've got to really dispel these rumors, because if they seem cold, distant, not close to each other, if it's she's at one end, he's at another end, that's going to continue to raise the speculation. The other thing is, too, if Harry is the Harry of old and all of a sudden she appears and he changes and becomes more reserved or somewhat standoffish, that's going to be the question. That's something people are going to be waiting to see, too. Is Harry different when she is not around? Because we've heard all this speculation. She's the cause of all these issues and that he really wants to make amends. He feels bad. So that's the question as well. How will Harry act when Meghan rejoins him?
All right. Well, I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But like we said at the top of the show, it is back to school time for so many kids, including the royal kids. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis will begin the new year at Lambert School on September 6th. So as we know that they previously attended Thomas Battersea, not far from the family's Kensington Palace home in London. But as we know that they moved and they are attending a new school, they are attending Lambert School. So kicking off the school year, royals just like us.
Yes. I can't imagine. I wonder if they're as frazzled the morning of the first day as the rest of us always are. But September, the end of the school holidays does usually mark the beginning of the royals ramping up with some exciting work. So hopefully we have a lot to look forward to this autumn.
No, definitely. And like we said, that they are returning to royal duty soon. Kate and William will be in France this upcoming weekend for the Rugby World Cup and will be supporting different teams. Kensington Palace confirmed that Kate will attend the group state match between England and Argentina on September 9th, while William is set to watch Wales take on Fiji on September 10th. And we know rugby, she is a patron of the Rugby Association, so this is definitely a big deal. But yes, the royals are getting back at it just as everybody else is.
Yeah, I wonder if yes, it's time. It's time.
Summer is over. But yes, we're going to be recapping it every single step of the way. Like always, Christine, thank you so much. Lots of big news this week.
Yeah, I wonder what next week's going to bring. Will it be quiet or will we have lots of gossip to share?
Only time will tell. All right. Well, have a good week, everybody. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.